Hey everyone, welcome to News Weekly. So I'm your host Dan.
And I'm co-host Ethan.
Ethan, what? Welcome.
Yeah, I know. I'm on another thing.
Mate, it's nice to have you on News Weekly.
What? So I can change the lights whenever you need
yes, so you can change the lights. Well, I just want to say in today's episode we've got a lot of good stuff. So Ethan, you're going to start us off with a bit of news from the BBC.
Yeah, students and teachers of the Spring Cottage Primary School, if you know where that is, they're dressed up as minions on Thursday the 1st of July, and they've just gone and got themselves a Guinness World Record for the most people dressed as minions in one place. They got 419. The original record was 250. And it's good because they just did it to raise awareness for the Stephen Hughes Foundation, which I do believe is a heart foundation. Yeah,
we had to find this out earlier. We didn't know what it was, and was like, oh, that's what it is.
So, are you saying what's next? I'll pass you the phone of honour.
Thank you. Well, I was just seeing that this was definitely recording. Yeah, so we're having to share phones, but we're all good.
We're sanitising our hands, don't worry.
Yes, we cleaned. We did all the cleaning. Right, what am I saying? Okay, so we're into the Freedom Road news now. I'm going to put that on my knee. So, last week we said about the sessions being back. We had all the band sessions and everything like that, and they've been really great to be back. And Ethan actually did part of the big band session that they did, like little rehearsal bits where they was doing the teaching, and then brought it together. And there's a bit of that recording in last week's News Weekly. And Ethan, why don't you tell us a bit about that? Like, do you think it's a healthy, dependable relationship having that band?
It is a healthy, dependable relationship, like having that band. Like separate things that we've been practicing. So like a couple of drummers have a few songs that we've now brought some singers into it, and then we've got a couple of singers that want to do solos and stuff like that, which is actually quite fun. There's me who's doing a solo drum piece as well. And then, should I talk about the Saturdays and stuff like that?
Yeah, talk about the Saturdays, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and on the Saturdays there's the collective, so singers, there's a few cajonistas, there's guitarists and drummers. That's all going quite well. We're all tight-packed family over there. And then there's obviously the band later in the day, which is called the Estates. And that brings us to the next thing, which is Arifest, which is on June the 9th, the entire weekend. It's run by a Freedom Road charitable donor called Mike Arameo.
You've got the name right.
Yeah, I got it right this time. At Leven Airfield.
I think it's Leven Airfield.
Leven.
But I'm sure that you're playing at this, aren't you, with the band?
Yes, we are. With I keep forgetting the name. We're from different estates. That's the one, the Estates. There we go. And then, do you want to talk about the tragic news about Tribfest?
Well, oh, thank you.
Well, it's not really that tragic.
No, it's not tragic. But last week we said about Tribfest going ahead and we're going to have the youth stage and things. But we found out last week that it won't be going ahead. And yeah, was a bit disappointed about it because Tribfest is one of the festivals we all look forward to. At the same time, we know that it's going to happen because obviously the whole thing with COVID, and we totally understand. And as well,
it's getting
people up
there and back.
Yeah, getting all the people up there is going to be really hard. And do you know what? I think if we're having this bit of time off, that next year we can have some more planning, we can make it bigger and better than the years we've had before.
Yeah, we can have more mainstream bands maybe headlining the youth stage and stuff like that.
Well, I was meant to be having one this time called Revivalry.
I know who they are, I've seen them a few times, yeah.
Yeah, and they was meant to come on, they've been on the radio and stuff. They're a young band we spoke about last week. Check them out on Instagram, by the way. Go check them out. We'll put their link down below.
You're going to free plug as well?
Yeah, we are. We're going to plug them because I said last time I met the drummer on social media, and they're really all nation people.
They're a really nice bunch of people.
And they was meant to be headlining, so hopefully next year we can get them on some gigs and headlining some stuff because they're a really good young band. And your phone's gone off again.
Oh, my phone's turned off.
But I just think that sometimes, just in this weird, uncertain time, things happen and we've just got to take it on the chin, and it's not a bad thing because I know that it's going to be maybe a difficulty as well trying to put on the main stage and the youth stage and everything else. So I totally understand why this is happening. But have you got anything else on there that you've got to say? Because I can't remember what we were actually meant to be saying in today's episode.
Well, we're on to the last section, which is about Podcast Corner 101. We've just released our first rebranded podcast, and the next episode is coming out this Wednesday, which will be fun.
So, Ethan, what was the first podcast about then? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what it was about?
The first podcast was really just about introducing everyone, because there's Toya now on the podcast, Sasha. So there's a couple of new people, and it was just basically introduction with them, just a small bit of insight on.
Well, you was in this podcast. How did you think that the first podcast went? Do you think it was different to how the other ones have? Because we've taken 2 months to try and plan how we can look at it a bit differently, what we can do, and now we've got a space where we can do the podcast. What was your thoughts of that?
I don't think it was that much different to when we first started, because when we first started it was fairly alright to still meet up and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas when it got like deep into lockdowns and stuff, it was hard to do because it was over Zoom. But it was a lot better since we was actually like in person again. So it felt kind of different, but it felt kind of natural to be like back in that state. And I think it went really well. Like the new people was really good. It was a good laugh.
Yeah, totally. I really enjoyed that. And I'm going to jump in and say about the second podcast. I don't need that. I remember what we're doing from now. So the second podcast is coming out this Wednesday. I think we said 6 o'clock because it's kind of a nice time, because it's like after school, after college. But it's kind of just after
people listen to.
Yeah, because most people have tea around 6 o'clock, so you can watch it a bit after, or if you're having tea later, then that can happen.
To it.
Yeah, or you can even listen into it while you're having your tea if you want. But that podcast was about Tourette's, and it was called, what was it called, Ethan?
It was Tourette's Awareness, What Makes You Tick.
Yeah, totally. And do you know what? That name was an absolute cracker, I think. Like, Jack came up with that, and I think it was really good. Do you want to maybe explain what we kind of spoke about in that podcast, and maybe why we did this podcast?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the reason why first. Sasha, one of our newest members, has Tourette syndrome, and it was basically just a podcast just explaining what Tourette syndrome was, and getting more awareness of Tourette syndrome out there, because it's not very talked about, and it's one of those conditions that people just look at you weirdly when you're on the street. But it's not your fault. You can't control what's happening with you. And I think it needs to be talked about more, which is why we've got the podcast.
Well, yeah, I mean, we spoke, didn't we? And we kind of said that, we obviously, I've said before, like, obviously that instant we had at college where we was all together, and someone who we both know has got Tourette's, and she's a really good friend of yours, that what happened is she got told to put a mask on. But do you want to maybe explain about why she can't wear a mask?
She can't wear a mask because one of her tics makes her stop breathing, and so she has to have it off just in case that one happens. And because of getting told this, she got that stressed out. She had a tic attack, and basically it's like similar to a seizure, but it isn't, I guess. And none of the first aiders or anything knew what they were doing. None of the teachers knew either. It was like just her friends who have like seen her in that state and have like tried different methods out that have actually managed to get her out of it. Yeah.
So would you say that the colleges and schools should totally maybe get someone someone in that maybe struggles with Tourette's syndrome themselves, and they can kind of say this is the best way to do it, this is the best way not to kind of educate like the schools and the colleges of the best way to kind of help someone with
I think they should
Tourette's.
do that, or just get the students that do have it to tell them what personally helps them, because each person with Tourette's is different.
Yeah.
Like each person's tic attacks are completely different. Like Sasha, she has to be held down so she doesn't hurt herself when she's having one. Whereas our mate at college, you can't because it could make the attack worse.
Yeah.
So it just depends on the person, really.
Yeah, so if you want to maybe learn a little bit more about what happened in that, and we think we got into a really good in-depth conversation, and it was kind of, we all felt it was a safe place, and everybody opened up about their opinions about it.
Yeah.
And definitely for Sasha, because it's a hard subject to kind of talk about. I mean, I don't sugar it myself, so I can't imagine what it's like to have it.
I don't, but like, obviously, I've got a friend with it, so like having to live with it is quite awful.
Totally. So I just want to say, check the podcast. It'll be down in the description.
And if you want to learn a bit more about what Sasha's got with her, we did a Q&A for her, along with Toya and Jamie, which is those videos have literally just been released. Are you releasing them?
I mean, what did you say earlier? Sasha,
Toya and Jamie have just been Q&A'd.
So, I mean, you know what? They'll be down there as well.
In the description or the bio.
In the description of the bio, something like that. Have we got anything else on that lovely list?
Not really, just mainly
Are we at the end?
A bit about the first News Weekly, which we've talked
about it. So,
I mean, it's the second one now. Why worry about the first one?
Oh yeah, the first one.
Obviously, when
this one's better in it because it's got you in it, so it's better, you know.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Pick up me, yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think we've come to the end of this lovely News Weekly episode. So I just want to say, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everything like that.
Check your phones.
Check your phones. Our link will be down in the description in our link tree, so follow us on everything. So I've been Dan.
I've been Ethan.
And you have been watching News Weekly.
And the light change, that was fun.
That's not in my queue. Anyways, we'll see you next week at 5 p.m. on next Monday.